Thank you. I am Runali. My question to you is I have been hearing Amrapali's story on Pocket FM from since 1 year. I had overcome with 200 episodes. So my question to you is that is it real or an imaginary story?
So Mrinali, she was a historical character for sure, and आप ये बस ध्यान रखिए कि क्योंकि it was thousands of years old and no real historical evidence except scriptures were found because उस time जो महल होते थे या किले होते थे वो made of wood, and all of those things have been lost, but it has been written. She has been written about in Buddhist scriptures, in other scriptures also. She was a very real person, पर यही होता है जब बहुत हजार साल हो जाते हैं the memories make stories also, so it is in mystery and yet there are some facts, and so जो collective एक memory है वो अम्रपाली की है, but she was very real a person. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Asavari and I welcome you to the second session of VLF 2024. And we have a very interesting session which is about quoting Hindustan, which is about Indian dance tradition, especially classical dance. India has a rich tradition of classical music and dance, and it is probably one of the only country in the entire world that teaches classical music with oral tradition, orally. The music is not written. Similar thing with dance, you can't learn Indian classical dance by just watching it on some platform. You have to go to a guru and be a really good disciple. Be in that Guru Shishya Parampara only, then you can learn Indian classical dance or music. And we are very fortunate to have Madhur Gupta with us, who's a true beacon of this Guru Shishya Parampara in Indian classical dance. But before I start our session and introduce our moderator and our author, I'd really like to thank our partners who helped us organize VLF 2024. All right. So, with this, let me introduce our moderator for the session. Our moderator is Mugdha Oak. Mugdha is a psychology graduate who works at Infoceps as the senior executive at CEO office and diversity, equity, and inclusion lead. She is passionate about building brands and culture by combining human behavior and communication. Her passion for Marcom comes from her experience in social psychology and marketing. In 2020, she co founded Hridayantar, a mental health awareness initiative that works towards reducing the stigma around mental health issues and making therapy more affordable and accessible for everyone. Mugdha is an avid reader. She likes to bake and travel, and she has a special love for pets, mostly dogs. She also loves good coffee and music. And our author for this session is Madhur Gupta. So, Madhur is one of the leading Odissi dance maestros of his generation. The Indian Express has hailed Madhur as one of the few male artists in field which is dominated by women who not only pursued Indian classical dance with devotion but also excelled at it. Beginning his initial training in Kathak with a maestro like Padma Vibhushan Pandit Birju Maharaj ji, he was strongly drawn towards Odissi as his life's calling. He has also had the fortune of interacting and learning from masters like Madhvi Mudgalji and Bichitrananda Swain and Kumkum Lal. Madhur is currently in advanced training under the renowned dancer and guru Srimati Sharon Lowen in Padma Vibhushan Guru Kelucharan Mohapatra style of Odissi dance. Apart from extensively touring, performing, and writing, Madhur is also teacher of Odissi dance at Sangeet Vidya Niketan, New Delhi. May I request Mugdha to escort our author in front? And please put your hands together for Madhur Gupta and Mugdha Oak.
Hello.
Before we start our session, I request everyone to please put your mobile phones on silent mode and do not attend any calls during the session. If you must attend a call, there's exit behind you. You can go to the lobby and attend the call and come back. Thank you so much for your cooperation, and over to you, Mugdha.
Hello, am I audible? Okay. Thank you so much, Asavari. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you so much, Madhur, for joining us here for the session.
Thank you, Mugdha. I hope I'm audible, right? Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
So, when I first picked up the book, I was definitely intrigued about the topic, but even more so, I was intrigued about the author. Exactly like Asavari mentioned, you are in a female or a women, predominantly women-dominated field
Field.
as
Yeah.
a man.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know what made you select this field, which, so to say, is an unconventional career. And then from one unconventional career, you went to another, which is being an author. So I want to know your journey as
Yeah.
an Odissi dancer and now
So,
an author.
Mugdha, everything, my life is happening by serendipities and it's all luck by chance. And I think it's a higher destiny that I'm living in this lifetime. Because again, my parents, although they were super liberal, but I am the first dancer in my family, first artist. My father was a lawyer, mom was a professor. But I always wanted to dance, so I said, please take me to a teacher. And it was my father who took me to Pandit Birju Maharaj ji. तो मैंने उनसे सीखना शुरू करा
Okay,
कथक.
Kathak.
और फिर ओडिसी भी it happened, I just happened to walk into a workshop of Madhvi Mudgal ji, which was being conducted, and I just fell in love with the dance form. And I think more than me choosing my art or my career, it was that they chose it for me. I mean, the higher powers. And again, similarly, you spoke about me being an author. To be very honest, being an author is a huge responsibility, and it's a very heavy title to hold. So I don't hold myself as an author. I know some English. I can form sentences, and I know my art and my dance. So again, it just happened to be. I had written some. Articles on women entertainers and Devadasis and Maharis and Tawayas, at some point in life, very early, as a 19-year-old kid. So my commissioning editor from Rupa Publications might have read the article, and they just called me at how old was I? At 24, and they said, "Would you like to write a book on this topic?" And me being the cheerleader that I am, I said yes, why not? And so the book came to be. With years of research, it took me like 6 to 7 years to manage to create the small manuscript. But yes, that's how the book came to me, and that's what my life has been.
That's wonderful. I mean, I know that you are seeing it very casually right now, that how it came to be, but it is a very extensively researched book, and once you start reading it, you will realize that. Also, it's a very easy read. For usually these books are very verbose when you have classical music and history and dance, all of that included. But there is also a very beautiful undercurrent of actions speak louder than words in this, and it's a very it's not in your face. It's a very breezy thing that comes together as you read from one chapter
Yeah.
to another. But I wanted to know, why did you select this particular topic? Why did a man in, so to say, our society want to write about female performers?
Yeah, yeah.
And that too ranging from, 2005, it's a history of 2500 years that we
Correct.
have. So can you please tell us more about that?
So, see, my entire idea of being an artist, of being an author, of somebody has a platform, is to be accessible. So just before the session began, I asked Mugdha, how do you say hello in Marathi? So she told me, "Mi ithe ahe, yacha mala anand ahe." So I always want to connect to whoever I am speaking to, performing for, writing for. So when I was writing the book, of course, extensive research has been done for sure by professors of great caliber, and I can never match that. But with the essence which I got, I really wanted it to be accessible to everybody, to kids ranging from 5 years old to to people who are in their 70s, to whoever. And again, the agenda is of writing this book, because you're saying women artists and women entertainers. I do not bind myself to gender stereotypes, saying that I'm a male artist or, somebody's a women artist. No. Actually, the idea is that artists in general are existing on the fringes of the society. They are not given the respect that they deserve, the kind of caliber that they demand. So the idea was that through the spectrum of women entertainers ranging from prehistoric India, medieval India actually, to even after independence, how they lived their life with very subtle empowerment and very subtle feminism, not in the face, and kept their art intact and kept reveling everybody all across the nation, keeping them smiling, keeping them, full of leisure and pleasure and dance and music through thousands of years. So that was the idea. And so the idea of writing a book on women is more about stamping the idea that arts has a very crucial and important role in all societies and through time and age.
Totally. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And we will come to the respect bit of it because the book especially talks about the courtesans who later on, after British India, were not recognized or were not given the recognition that they deserve. But we'll come to that later. But before we go there, out of the 10 stories that you've written, one of the stories that really stuck with me was that of Amrapali. You've written that she had kings and kingdoms at her feet, but she gave it all up to seek the ultimate truth. So, what was the ultimate truth and how did she go into that path? Can you please talk about
So
that?
Amrapali is the first chapter in the book. She was called a Janpad Kalyani. So women had a very crucial and a superior role in ancient India, even till medieval times. And it is only during the British time that this institution went through a downfall. So what meant was that Amrapali was the wife of the entire city, which meant that she used to entertain patrons, she used to dance and sing and act as a medium of leisure for the nobility. So she had immense strength to her, and it's not just about Amrapali. Women in those times, through their art and culture, because आप समझिए कि जो education है at that time was not available to everybody, and these women who were trained in the 64 kalas, the 64 arts, they used to act as the moral guide to nobility, so they had supreme power through softer refined art, through finer movements. They used to convince generals to go for a war, for kings to make peace, and you'll read it in the book how powerful she was, so that was the aspect of Amrapali. And again, हम लोग को लगता है जो आर्टिस्ट होते हैं वो उनको ज़्यादा कुछ आता नहीं है, पढ़ाई लिखाई, ऐसे डांस करते हैं, नाचते हैं, गाते हैं, ऐसा नहीं होता है. Because to train in an art takes years of devotion and dedication and constant perseverance, which does not come easy to anybody. It's akin to being a doctor and you have to constantly keep on studying. So the point I'm making is artists are actually existing on a higher plane, because we are working, we are existing for a higher purpose. So Amrapali also, she was pretty much delusioned by the mundaneness of life, Although she had all the leisures and the pleasures the life can offer, because her treasury was bigger than most of the kings that existed at that time. Yet she chose to become a Buddhist nun once she met Gautam Buddha, and she denounced all the wealth and all the. So Ambapali का सुता आप कभी बुद्धिज्म में अगर आप इंटरेस्ट रखेंगे तो एक है उसमें Amrapali met Gautam Buddha. She gets enlightened and she donates a grove, a mango grove, which she had to herself, to the Sangha, the Buddha Sangha, and hence Ambapalika Sutta is written. So it's very interesting how somebody who is enveloped and engulfed in the finer and the refined things of life can still pursue and persist to mentally enlighten themselves, and that has been the subtle life story of almost all artists. Not just these 10 women written in the book. Arts का purpose ही यही है कि जो हम रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी में जो हम जीते हैं, दुख सुख काम अर्थ, मोक्ष, तो मोक्ष की प्राप्ति का ही हमारा मेन एजेंडा होता है थ्रू स्पेशली इंडियन क्लासिकल आर्ट्स. So yeah, Amrapali had that very interesting trajectory of being the Janpal Kalyani, of being, richer than kings and everything, and kings falling. King Bimbisar, was at her feet.
Yes.
Absolutely. And yet she just gave it up to become a Buddhist nun and live much more spiritually refined life.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that is one of the things that we've noticed in the book also, that these courtesans were extremely rich. They held not just a lot of money but also a lot of power in the society at that point of time.
Correct.
But then moving from someone in the medieval times, that is Amrapali, to someone who is slightly more relevant to us today, that is the likes of Begum Hazrat Mahal or Gohar Jan, whose names we've heard. And it's a beautiful tapestry that you've woven through their stories, right? Whether it was Rani Roopmati also, very fascinating story she has. But one story that I found very relevant was that of Jaddan Bai, the mother of Fatima Rashid, who we famously know as Nargis.
Ji.
And I'd want you to take us through that story because it is a wonderful, wonderful tale of three generations of women
Correct.
passing on that strength and that knowledge.
Correct.
And some actually not even passing on that knowledge, because Jaddan Bai actually restricted herself from passing on some knowledge to Nargis.
Nargis, yeah.
So, can you please elaborate on
Yeah,
that?
Jaddan Bai, I think she's the 7th or the 6th chapter, or the 8th chapter maybe. It's very interesting. Jaddan Bai, for more reference, is Sunil Dutt's, Sunil Dutt? No, Sanjay. No. Sunil Dutt's mother-in-law, Sanjay Dutt, is there, right?
Yeah.
Sanjay Dutt's nani, basically. That was Jaddan Bai. Jaddan Bai mom's was Dalipa Bai, and so they came from a very long-standing tradition of courtesans, who were highly refined in art, in the way of singing, in the way of doing shairi, poetry, and everything finer things in life. So Jaddan Bai की कहानी बहुत interesting है because उसको बहुत late, because of their own personal and financial struggles, she could not really get educated in the way of singing, right? So she did not have the best capabilities like Janaki Bai or Gohar Jan or all these women. So yet she had a very established institution in Calcutta and everything, and she was managing. Now, understand, during the 1930s, when the Indian film industry, especially the Bombay film industry, was at a very, very nascent stage. Alamara had just come out and everything. Imagine the strength and the conviction of a woman to uproot herself from a established city. It's like, okay, I have something in Delhi. I choose to decide, okay, Nagpur mein hum ab kuch karenge. So I bring my entire life from Kolkata to Bombay in a burgeoning film industry. She became one of the first women directors and music directors at that too, in the entire history of India. And the vision that she had for films, आप उनकी पिक्चरें देखेंगे तलाशे हक, was very, how should I say, she had a sensibility of Indian independence, of Swadeshi movement. So again, the point is that though these women might be entertaining nobility and patrons and zamindars and kings and so forth, they had a very, very intuitive and a very focused mind as to where and how their art can make a difference. So Nargis, when she was born, Jaddan Bai did not educate her in music, because क्या होता है, and I don't know if you'll agree or not, as soon as someone says, or I say even now, I'm an artist, the second question is, okay, and then what do you do otherwise, इसके अलावा आप क्या करते हैं, because arts is not a viable profession. एंड अभी तो चलिए तब भी थोड़ा ये डांस रियलिटी शो से थोड़ा रिस्पेक्टफुल हो गया है. पहले तो इसको हीन दृष्टि से देखा जाता था कि कोई भी नाचने गाने वाला तो वुड बी ऑफ लूज मॉरल कैरेक्टर और वुड नॉट बी ऑफ वेरी हाई कैलिबर. So it's very interesting. Jaddan Bai was facing, and all the women have faced ostracization from the society, ironically, because the same patrons, they used to patronize these women and used to make them rich and used to revel in the arts that they could provide. Yeah. But the same high strata of the society would not accept them in daylight, and say, you're a dancer or you are a devadasi and all those things. तो जद्दन भाई को भी ये फेस करना पड़ा था, hence she never wanted Nargis to become a गाने वाली, which was the common term at that time, you know. So she was trained in the act of filmmaking, and that's how she came into being, and she met Sunil Das, and all those things happened. But yeah, super interesting life, very strong lady, and a must read on for even young kids, you girls, you know, on how to make a life for yourself if you don't have any support in life. You know, if you do not get, if you want to become a doctor and somebody saying no, just become a teacher, and you really want to become an astronaut or you know whatever, just go for it. You know, so this book is very helpful for that also if you read it.
That's wonderful. Any particular art form that you would like to talk about, because it covers a lot of, like, the timeline is massive.
जी.
So is there a specific art form that you would like to cover?
Sure, sure. So I will, because I'm an Odissi dancer, Kathak में भी मैंने सीखा हुआ है, but Kathak I never performed. तो I will tell you through, if you आप permission देंगे तो हम थोड़ा आपको डांस करके दिखाते हैं.
Please, please.
So क्या होता था
Permission,
देखिए, लव टू सी, चलिए थोड़ा सा दिखाते हैं आप सबको. क्या होता था देखिए, जो भी ये कलाएं थी, दे यूज्ड टू एग्जिस्ट इन द टेम्पल्स, यू नो, बिफोर दे केम टू द कोर्ट. तो जितने भी ये विमेन थे, दे वर कॉल्ड एज देवदासीज, देव की दासी, और एक्चुअली दे वर मैरिड टू गॉड. सो इन दैट वे इन उड़ीसा दे वर कॉल्ड महारीज एंड मुरलीज, जोगम्मास. तो ये जो भी आर्ट फॉर्म था वाज मेंट टू हैपन फॉर द गॉड बिफोर द नोबिलिटी केम. तो उनका पूरा फंक्शन ही ये था, बिकॉज इन इंडियन ethos, in Indian mythologies, God is supposed to be the king of that entire temple, square, the city, the nation. So they used to be married to the god. Their function was like a wife would enact out a daily ritual with the husband, you know, waking him up, feeding him, dancing for him, bathing him, putting him to sleep, all that. And during that एक प्रथा होती थी, डांस भी एक ऑफरिंग होता था, you know, it used to be a seva. So there used to be Bhitar Gaunis, or the inner sanctum sanctorum dancers who used to dance just in front of the god. There used to be Bahar Gaunis. Dancers used to stand out in the temple square and then used to dance for the god and the priests and everything. तो एक चीज़ और मैं आपको बताता जाता हूँ कि हम लोग डांसर्स को, ये विमेन को, थ्रू माई बुक ऑल्सो, यूजुअली हम लोग बहुत बेचारा समझते हैं कि यू नो women and how would they be doing anything in life and things. If you see our classical literature, you know, people find it boring and someone might find it regressive. But I'll show you two very small pieces where Radha and Krishna. So this is from Gita Govinda, जो कि जगन्नाथपुरी मंदिर में सिर्फ यही परफॉर्म हो सकता था, you know. How empowering the theme is. So and this has been continuing for, again, like I'm saying, centuries. The practice used to happen in the 13th century and the 21st century also. I am a repository of the collective art that these women, you know, treasured and passed on from one generation to the other. Hence, you're able to see me and, you know, future generations also. So, आप एक चीज देखिए, जैसे इसमें कृष्णा is coming to Radha. And he's saying, so it's called Vadasi Yadi Kinchidapi Dantaruchi Kaumadi, कि अगर आप ज़रा सा मुस्कुरा दें तो ये जो चंद्रमा की रोशनी आपके मुख से निकलेगी उसको भी फेल कर देगी, and it will take away the darkness of my heart. So if Radha is here, he says, Vadasi Yadi Kinchidapi Dantaruchi कौमुदी वदसि यदि किञ्चिदपि दन्तरुचि कौमुदी हरति डरति नीर अति घोरं सुरद धर सीधवे तव वदन चंद्रमा लोचयति लोचन चकोरम। तो वो बोल रहे हैं कि आप अगर स्माइल करेंगे, आपके ये जो होंठ है, इफ यू स्माइल, दीज लोटस लाइक लिप्स विल ट्रिकल स्वीट नेक्टर, शहद, और वो ऐसा लगेगा उसको पी, मैं जब आई डू द रसपान, तो उस प्रकार होगा जिस प्रकार चंद्रमा, जो चकोर बर्ड है, वो जब चंद्रमा को देखता रहता है, तो मैं भी आपको उस प्रकार देखता रहूंगा, सो कृष्णा, हु इज द मोस्ट हायर बीइंग इन वैष्णविज्म, he is being so gentle and so subservient to Radha, and so if you say it in a very mundane way, it's such an empowered woman, such an empowered lady, she, Radha को हम करते हैं कि अरे वो तो रो रही होगी, विरह कर रही होगी, she is always pining for meeting the lover, and ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। ऐसे ही एक अष्टपदी और है, it's called Kuru Yadunandan, and it's very beautiful. So the act is that Radha and Krishna have had their union, and now Radha, being the empowered again Mahashakti, Mahadevi, she is commanding with respect, with love, and like you would say to a friend, like you would say to a husband, now please decorate me back again and make me who I was. And again, please notice that this is being said to Mahavishnu, Krishna, and the avatar of the focus point of all this being. So this time Radha is saying to Krishna, Kuru Yadunandan, please do चंदन शिशिर, अपने भी ये जो चंदन है उससे भी ठंडे हाथ से, करेण भरेण पयोधरे, ये सुंदर सुंदर सैंडलवुड पेस्ट बनाओ और मुझे वापस से सुंदर बना दो। अ वुमन इज कमांडिंग अ मैन, इमेजिन, एंड दिस वाज रिटन इन द 13th century, राइट? सो इट गोज कुरु यदु नंदन चंदन शिशिर, करेण करेण पयोधरे, कुरु यदु नंदन चंदन शिशिर, तरेण करेण पयोधरे, कुरु यदु नंदन चंदन शिशिर, तरेण करेण पयोधरे। So see, again, the point is,
Amazing.
see, the point is, again, these women are empowered, right? Like these women were super empowered, but feminism or women empowerment was taken and reflected and lived through in a very subtle way.
Yeah,
It was not
exactly.
in the face. It was not, we are this, we want this, let us do it. We are Devadasis or we are Tavayavs, we will not leave. Very subtle, despite years and centuries of persecution, of ostracization, they really believed in their art and just lived through it,
Yeah.
and kept enlightening others for
Yes.
centuries. Yeah.
That was a beautiful performance. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. And I agree. I exactly like I mentioned before, right? There's an undercurrent of actions speak louder than
Correct.
words. It is never words. None of these women have gone out and said that I want this. These are my rights, or I'm going to be a rebel. But they've done it so beautifully, so gracefully through their actions.
Correct.
And what you're mentioning right now, right? Devadasis, the wives, etc. The word that we use as courtesans. I think one of, for my generation, the first introduction was maybe Anarkali in pop culture. But apart from that, we never really have heard of these stories. So can you tell us who exactly are these courtesans? What is the definition of these courtesans? When
See-
someone picks up the book,
Yeah.
what is it that they should?
So, see, courtesan again is a very British term because it's clubbing all categories of performers into a single box, right? So, courtesans was a collective term used for women entertainers. But if you do your own research or if you read a little bit, अगर आप ये भी book पढ़ेंगे तो उसमें आपको समझ में आएगा there were several categories of women entertainers, you know. Some had a religious function, you know, जो मंदिरों में ही नृत्य करते थे, भगवान को dedicated थे. कुछ लोग राज नर्तकी थी. राज नर्तकी का रोल पूरा था कि राजा को entertain करना उनके meals के बाद and all that. Some were Ganikas or attendants, you know. So some were Tavayas, so who used to have their own institutions, who used to perform. So it was like an entire spectrum of women performers, but due to very limited understanding of the Indian ethos of the Indian culture, British clubbed all of them into the single unitary term of courtesans. Imagine you're saying that Deepika Padukone and somebody who's dancing in their house in front of a mirror is the same category. You know, imagine, you know, somebody's dancing for friends and family, and somebody who's performing at the highest level of their being is of the same category. And on top of that, the irony is that British not just clubbed them together but also ostracized them together, you know, because they really did not understand Indian culture.
Exactly. So I was actually going to come to that. You know, these women who were also known as the town's consort, they were also, in a way, they held divine positions.
Correct.
Right? How did they go from being divine to, you know, criminals in a way because
Correct.
of the British
Correct.
rule that came in? So
Correct.
how did that happen?
See, the only understanding Britishers had because of their, I'm not blaming them per se, because Abrahamic understanding of spirituality is very different than Indian understanding of spirituality. All our gods dance, all our gods have wives, all our you know, कृष्ण की कितनी 1008 कितनी wives हैं. So हाँ, तो उसका क्या मतलब हुआ कि हमारे कल्चर में बहुत ज़्यादा एक फ्रीडम है और एक सहजता है, you know, and Indians love to revel in all the pleasures of life. You know, they are not restricted on a certain path. So when Britishers came, they could not understand what Indian culture was per se. So anybody who was a performer, anybody who was an entertainer was of low moral character, and they were termed as temple harlots actually, you know. So all Devadasis, they were considered almost akin to, I should not say, but prostitutes, right? And so there's very interesting chapter, there's an interesting paragraph in the opening introduction. I'll read it for you. So, the British view of Devadasis was one of the deep-rooted misunderstandings stemming from misogyny. These women who devoted themselves to their regional Hindu temples had sustained intimate ties with men from high socio-economic class. These ties were typically polyamorous romantic affairs with a number of social superiors, which was an accepted norm during those times. Now, this violated the conventional British understanding of moral union and spiritual behavior. The erotic aspect of Devadasi professionals was mostly rejected by the British. The British government then concentrated on the placement of these Devadasis in Indian society and introduced law accordingly to ostracize them. From 1860s onwards, prosecutions for temple harlotry became much more popular. And then, you know, and the entire Indian Penal Code happened. Now, while British sensitivities became offended by the conduct of these Devadasis, the new masters were bizarrely unfamiliar with the customary privileges enjoyed by them, you know, which for some reason was not even investigated. Within the Hindu legislation, Devadasis were given land, ownership rights, otherwise unthinkable for women at that time, you know. Ironically, while many reforms of slavery beneficial to the British were tolerated, you know, like Sati Pratha and all those things, Devadasis, which was starkly a religious agency, was identified as illegal mode of temple harlotry. And again, it's ironical. British were fine in enslaving Indians for their own purposes. जैसे indigo की खेती होती थी, नील की खेती, which was so disruptive, right? They destroyed several industries from jute from Dhaka, Banarsi sarees in Banaras and everything. So similarly, in the same category, they were hell-bent on mitigating anything that Indian culture had to do because they wanted to erase from memories of generations, you know, how strong and how superior we were, we still are in terms to the entire globe, you know, because one of the oldest civilizations. So,
But yeah, that's actually one of the paragraphs that does resonate with us, and the other paragraph that does resonate is how we've in folklore and in mythology we always see the male representation more. So, which is another reason why I really enjoyed reading the book is because we've not really seen a women representation apart from I think Vikram Sampat's Goharjan that was released. What I wanted to ask you is, there are 10 stories, we've spoken about two of these wonderful women. Which one was your favorite story while writing? Which one did you really enjoy working on? Because there's a lot of research that went into the book, so I want to know what's your favorite.
I think, let me just take a look.
Have I asked you to pick between your favorite child?
My favorite child out of the 10. My favorite, I don't know if you like or not, but would be the last Bala Saraswati because she was one of the last living courtesans of her times. वो उनकी पूरी patronage जो थी मतलब पूरी lineage जो थी they were courtesans and even when Indian independence had happened and all the legislation came, Devadasi Act and all of those, which did not allow performers to dance. She sat at home for 5 to 6 years without doing anything, and yet again, she did not give up her profession and said, "Okay, fine, this is too much." They really stood up for themselves.
That's
and,
a lot of courage to
and
show.
she was awarded the Padma Bhushan by the Indian government in 1980s.
Yeah.
So I think if you really understand your inner value of who you are and stand up for it, some point or the other, whether you need a validation from the government, from public or not, but it will come. So the most important thing is you should personally validate your existence and be happy with who you are. So yeah, Bala Saraswati.
Yes. I think all the women have done that. They've not waited for anybody to validate
Correct.
their
Correct.
existence or their art form.
Correct.
They just stood firmly with who they were and they were extremely authentic
Absolutely.
in what they were doing. And what I want to also know is, for the audience here, some people might have read the book, some might not have. But what is the one takeaway? Because when I was reading it, I could actually take away some lessons for myself as a woman, even though the stories are ancient, but the lessons are very relevant even today. So, can you just share some of the takeaways with the audience that
See, like
they
I'm
can
saying to
get
the
from
kids present in the audience and to other members of the esteemed audience, the idea is that yes, arts is important, and these women entertainers lived life of ostracization and they struggled, and yet they kept their art intact. But बात ये होनी चाहिए कि जितनी भी आप women के बारे में पढ़ेंगे या introduction में पढ़ेंगे, like I've been saying, it has a very strong undercurrent of being empowered from within. You should have very firm faith and very strong belief in who you are, who you want to be, where you want to go. And again, these women, they made everyone enlightened and happy and, more at peace around them, So I think for me, my takeaway from my book is, just to stay empowered from within, validate yourself, be happy, make others happy, and just be calm within and calm outside, for everyone. So yeah.
All right. That's it from my side. I mean, I can go on talking about this book, but I think we should have question and answers from the audience. If you have any questions, please raise your hands and someone from the volunteers will give you a mic. We have one question there.
Yes. So, though it's a very interesting topic, I mean, we can go all and it's lovely discussing about it. But you said, the Britishers quoted that, this is illegal and all the malpractices started. But, when we talk about the exploitation of these women, it was mostly the Indians who did this. So do you feel that the viewpoint of the Britishers was so strong that the Indian society also started harassing or exploiting these women?
Correct. So it's very interesting that you bring this up because yes, as women entertainers who were projecting themselves to the public eye, to the eye of their patron, to the eye of the nobility, had a very high chance of being taken advantage of, right? But that's absolutely like how you work in a corporate right now. You are a senior manager in a very high end MNC and you are a woman who can be taken advantage of. Now, it is your responsibility and your understanding of life where you want to go. So again, all these women, I think most of them you know, never took undue advantage of their position. You know, they had one patron because it was a matrilineal line that they used to carry. So they never used to marry as such, but doesn't mean that they were having multiple affairs or they were taken advantage of. In fact, say, Amrapali, we were talking, she restrained herself. You know, she said, I will only be taking one patron. And even Bala Saraswati, she was never married. She was with R.K. Shanmugam, the first finance minister of India, for an entire lifetime. तो ऐसा नहीं होता है, बट येस ऐसा हो सकता है कि आप पब्लिक आई में हैं और you're there and you're vulnerable, you can be taken advantage of. That has happened to a few women at that time. But again, it's very similar to today's society also. You know, in corporates, in families, women are taken advantage of, and the book is entirely making a point that if you have belief in yourself, you will go somewhere. And please never give in to the whims of men or of any other genders around yourself. You know, stay safe.
Thank you. Yes, any other questions?
Yes, that kid has a question.
Okay.
So myself Himanshi, and my question to you is: in today's day, some boys have a problem faced for being a dancer or a singer. तुम लड़की की तरह क्यों नाच रहे हो? So why do people think society?
Why do people think like that?
Yes.
Do you think like that?
No.
No? So, see, thank you, Himanshi, for bringing this up. And yes, it's a popular notion in today's age. I mean, it's going away that women can't dance or, men can't dance or women can't do certain things. But please remember, all the best chefs in the entire world are men, you know, and India and other countries have been led by female prime ministers at several points in life, right? So, कोई भी ऐसा जेंडर नहीं है जो एक काम कर सकता है दूसरा काम नहीं कर सकता है, you know? तो ये हमेशा ध्यान रखिएगा. तो आपको जो करना है आप करिएगा despite what anyone is saying, and if you are famous and if you are rich through that, everybody will love you.
There's terms and conditions applied for that.
Yeah.
So we have another kid with a question.
Thank you. I am Runali. My question to you is: I have been hearing Amrapali's story on Pocket FM from since 1 year. I had overcome with 200 episodes. So my question to you is that is it real or an imaginary story?
So, Mrinali, she was a historical character for sure, and आप ये बस ध्यान रखिए कि क्योंकि it was thousands of years old and no real historical evidence except scriptures were found, because उस time जो महल होते थे या किले होते थे वो made of wood, you know, and all of those things have been lost. But it has been written, she has been written about in Buddhist scriptures, in other scriptures also. She was a very real person. पर यही होता है जब बहुत हजार साल हो जाते हैं, the memories make stories also, you know. So it is in mystery and yet there are some facts, and so जो collective एक memory है वो Amrapali की है, but she was very real a person. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Mother, thank you very much for your talk on all these women throughout history. I have a question, comment. I am not very sure about it, but then I'll just throw it out to you.
Please.
There has been, particularly with regards to Devadasi system, there has been a lot of debate within the society, right?
Correct.
It's not just about the art that we are talking about,
Correct.
but it is also rooted within the society in which we live in.
Sure.
A society which is a caste-based society, a hierarchical society, wherein exploitation and slavery is basically caste-related, women-related, gender-related, and so on and so forth.
Correct.
Wherein most of the reformers have seen Devdasi system particularly as sex exploitation and slavery. So in that case, how far can we really suggest in terms of like, or speak very fondly about women who are engaged into this profession, right? Whether it is a matter of their choice.
Correct.
Say, for example, if you talk about modern prostitution, is it a matter of their choice? Right?
Correct.
So these are all the issues which literally are engaged into these things, and very simplifically dealing with these things without the context of the society, without the context of how the society has operated in India, even before the British. Let's not blame everything on the British, because everything existed before the British and continued despite the British.
Correct.
Right? So that has always been there. So how do we really deal with black and white kind of a situation, where
again-
these are like a wonderful kind of a culture that has been developed in India, and we should be really very proud of it.
Yeah, thank you for your very thought-provoking question. So, see, how I see it as is because again, I'm not a sociology expert, and I might not have much knowledge about the caste system or the caste system that existed. But surely Devadasis were an ostracized class, and yes, a lot of women were forced into it despite their engagements or despite their inclination towards other things. But ये again, it's the similar thing कि जो लोहार का बेटा लोहार ही बनेगा, you know, डॉक्टर का बेटा डॉक्टर ही बनेगा. Similar at that level. I'm not generalizing the term, but having said so, through my research, as far as I have gone, all these women, they were also given choices, right? जैसे आम्रपाली का हो गया, या आप कह लीजिए नरगिस का हो गया, या आप कह लीजिए इवन बाला सरस्वती. बाला सरस्वती was never asked to dance. In fact, she was asked not to dance. She was saying ये disrespectful है, या जो भी उनके उस टाइम की सोसाइटी के नॉर्म्स थे, तो उन्होंने बोला आप म्यूजिक कर लो. So there is certainly a gray area in their existence in the Indian society, but because being a courtesan during centuries through ages was certainly a point of privilege for a lot of women. And when I am talking about courtesans, again we are talking of the heroines of those times, whether it was Gohar Jan, whether it was Begum Akhtar. We all have a lot of sadness in our life, you know, through different aspects, you know, whether we are in a profession in which we have to face public, or we have to engage with patrons. So the socio-economic struggle is that Devadasi had as an institution a function in the society. You know, they were an institution where young nobility was sent to learn tehzeeb and tamiz, and like I answered her question also, that might subject you to being taken advantage of, you know. But again, we time and again have had examples of women who really made it a point and stood up for themselves, and they said, this is something that I want, this is something that I don't want. So again, not generalizing, even in the book, I have not made a point on whether being a Devadasi or a Mahari or a temple dancer or a women dancer entertainer was right or wrong. My entire point of creating the book and coming for the talk today also is that arts, and we are talking about higher arts, not mundane arts which were done in salons, is very crucial to the existence of humanity. That's the entire point I'm making. और आप किसी सोशियोलॉजी के प्रोफेसर से ये क्वेश्चन ज़रूर पूछेगा, क्योंकि इसका जवाब मैं भी जानना चाहता हूँ. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Kartika Nair. And my question to you, sir, is I come from a family of South India. I've been brought up from Kerala.
Yeah.
Okay, from the Nair Tarwad, basically. And we grew up listening to all these stories from the temple courtesans, like all these things, and watching movies of Manichitra Taram featuring Mohanlal, trying to, and Spadigam, and all these movies wherein Mohanlal was trying to, eradicate Revati's emotion being that of a classical dancer.
Correct.
My question to you is, after reading Laura Mulvey's male gaze theory, my perception towards everything changed, towards the dance form started changing, and I wanted to know that was the male gaze the reason for the downfall of this artist and all the artisans for that matter?
अच्छा, so यहाँ पे फिर वही बात आती है कि like sir said and like we've been discussing, we can't generalize and focus on a singular ideology or a singular problem for the downfall of anything, right? It really has to have a butterfly effect behind it. So whether it is the main gaze, the vulnerable position of the Devadasis, the dancers, and again the ostracization of a profession which was not considered of a very high standard. आप ये समझिए, my guru Pandit Birju Maharaj ji, right? His ancestors were respected by the nobility of Awadh, Wajid Ali Shah Sahab and others. But before that, they were considered untouchables, or उनको बहुत उससे नहीं देखा जाता था. Despite that, they were respected in the court. So there was a dichotomy and there was an irony existing all throughout. Now, I believe that it is your worldview and how you want to see the world. Because I don't really want to blame anyone. I'm not blaming Britishers. I'm not blaming the male gaze. I'm just saying these women had their art. They existed. They were practicing. Several social economical factors were working in, whether it was the independence movement which was happening, whether it was the cultural renaissance in India which was happening. Because ये हम classical arts की बात करते हैं, and आपने जो पिक्चर देखी है, आप have you read शिल्पाधिकारम, माधवी और शिल्पाधिकारम, have you read about it? तो कितना सुंदर लिटरेचर है वो, आप पढ़िए, संगम लिटरेचर, आप ये सब पढ़िए. Very, very refined and and a very beautiful world that there was. But again, आप मालविकाग्निमित्रम पढ़ेंगे या any very classical literature, Kalidas's literatures, or even Charudat, sorry, not Charudat. If you read, अरे क्या नाम था इसका, वसंत सेना, वसंत सेना and Charudat. Vasant Sena के chapter में the king's brother-in-law wants to take advantage of Vasant Sena. Vasant Sena made it very clear, I do not want to engage with you in any manner whatsoever possible. The king at the end of the play punishes the brother-in-law. So at all points the women had a say in who they wanted to engage with, despite being a public woman or somebody who had to perform. अब वो आप मेल गेज का डाउनफॉल ले लीजिए या ब्रिटिशर्स का ले लीजिए या इंडियन इंडिपेंडेंस मूवमेंट का ले लीजिए, इट ऑल केम टू बी टुगेदर एंड दैट्स हाउ वेयर वी आर. बट स्टिल आई एम द व्हाटएवर द 100th generation of these dancers, taking the art forward. So, yeah.
Hi, Madhu.
Namaste.
Yeah.
Namaste.
First of all, congratulations to you for taking VLF beyond words to the performing stage.
Thank
right?
you.
You've really made the stage of VLF come alive. And I also want to thank you both professionally for what you do as a danceress, as an exponent of somebody who keeps the entire tradition of classical dance alive and thriving, and also turning your performance into an academic exercise with this excellent book, where the snippets that I have heard. So congratulations on many counts for that, because it really opens up our own binaries and prejudices that we think of.
Sure.
My question to you is, in the course of your research, did you come across a tradition of male courtesans in India, like it used to be in Europe, for instance?
Yeah.
I believe, I may be historically wrong, but Razia Sultan, for example, had a tradition of male courtesans in the court.
Absolutely.
So, have you explored that idea?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I did a thorough research on the male courtesan traditions of India. But again, because I have studied under Maharaj ji, तो उनका जो कथक शब्द है, it's a dance form now, but वो कथक एक caste होता था actually. Anybody who used to go around village to village, it used to be a family. So they were called kathaks, and the family troupe was called kathak. तो उससे वो कथक शब्द लेके आज वो एक डांस फॉर्म बन गया है. It has become a proper noun in that sense. But yes, majorly, and even if you see Andhra Natyam, or if you see the tradition of Kathakali, very, very, and आप Sri Vesham के examples ले लीजिए, तो men performing for public was actually the norm, for a very, very long time. And women used to perform inside the temple. Men used to perform outside the temple. जैसे आप मेरे ओडिसी के बारे में ले लीजिए, तो हमारे में एक folk dance होता है गोटी पुआ. Goti means one and Puo means a boy, a son, who used to dress up as a woman in Sri Vesham, and they used to perform in the temple village square. So again, like I answered the kid, I don't think a gender can be restricted to anything, and everybody is free to do that. But yes, certainly the male courtesans also existed at all points. Yes. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Please, Utkarsh.
Now, the topic which we are talking about is pre-British and post-British. So I just wanted to ask, like during the course of your research, like which were the prominent parts of our country where could you see that these Devdasis or the courtesans were prominently being seen, or which part were not there? Because whenever I am going through all these dances and all, I prominently find that towards the southern part, north, and the west, east. These are the prominent parts where you could see the classical dancers and the Devdasis.
Correct.
So what about the western or the central part of the subcontinent?
See, again, it's about documentation and it's about archiving. So, very briefly in the book I've mentioned, almost all state had the tradition of having temple dancers. You know, so Jogammas थी, मुरलीस थी, नॉर्थ में तागायफ्स थी, उड़ीसा में महारीस थी, मणिपुर में माईबीस थी, साउथ में देवदासी थी, फिर वो सादे रट्टम बन गया. All states, you know, because the states which came up with the term classical dancing, ये classical तो ये post British का ही time के वो है, तो जो classical डांस जैसे सादे रट्टम became भरतनाट्यम, right? महारीज एंड गोटीपुआज मिला के ओडिसी केम टू बीइंग, तवायफ का ट्रेडिशन मिला के कथक बन गया, यू नो, माईबीज का ट्रेडिशन मिला के मणिपुरी बन गया. सो द dancing traditions that are recognized right now, the 8 classical dances of the 8 states, because there was an immense amount of research and documentation done on that, that's why we figure कि हाँ इन states में था एक living tradition, but ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है. एक तो पहली बात स्टेट थे नहीं भारत में, राज्य थे अलग अलग, सारे राज्यों में ये सब ट्रेडिशंस थे, मंदिरों में, कोर्ट में, टेम्पल स्क्वायर्स में, विलेज स्क्वायर्स में डांस और म्यूजिक करने का. सो या दैट्स थिंग.
Thank you so much, Madhur. It was
Thank
a
you,
wonderful,
Mugdha.
wonderful discussion. And thank you to the audience. You were a wonderful audience. And thank you for those amazing questions that you asked.
Thank you.
And thank you, like Prantik sir mentioned, thank you for converting this not into just a conversational platform, but a beautiful performing arts stage as well today. Thank you.
It was lovely, and I would like to thank VLF. I would like to thank Sachin ji, your entire team, Utkarsha ji, everybody. It really feels, this is my first time in Nagpur, but it really feels so warm and it's like family. You know, I'm so happy to be here. And I hope I'll keep coming back and maybe give a full performance for all of you.
We look forward to that.
I was about to say that Madhur ji, आपका वो थोड़ा सा performance देख के दिल नहीं भरा, so maybe next year we'll have complete performance, a cultural
Hopefully.
performance evening dedicated to you. We would
Hopefully.
all love that.
That's right.
Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you Mugdha for moderating the session so wonderfully. So before we conclude, may I request Professor Prantik Banerjee to present Madhur with a small token of love. We have a card by Mandira, and the card represents one of the most prominent monuments in Nagpur city. So I hope you remember Nagpur fondly whenever you look at the card. And Prantik sir, I also request you to present a small token of love to Mugdha as well for moderating the session so wonderfully. Thanks a lot, everyone.